Welcome back. This video, like the last video, brought to you by Atlas Gunworks. Why? Because I still have the Athena. They haven't asked for it back yet, and I get to play with it today. We're here at the Armory shooting range instead of being in the basement. Here with my buddy Zach. We're gonna do some dry fire. We're gonna do some live fire after we're done here. But wanted to give you guys a quick taste of my first shots through this. Now, full disclosure, I have shot an Athena before, just like shoot some into a berm at a match because I wanted to see what it felt like thing. And I did shoot it here just for a few minutes to get the gun zeroed, but I haven't really been doing any practice with it other than just like shooting at a piece of steel or something. I've never run a stage or anything like that with it. Quick recap from the last video. If you remember correctly, the two things about the gun that don't really work for me as it's configured right now, my thumb, I broke it quite a while ago and it's not round anymore. It doesn't make the same shape as everybody else's web, which means that the giant paddle safety, a bit of an issue for me. I also found that when I was reloading, I tended to come up with my left hand and bump the safety on because it has that big paddle safety. So if I was speccing this, I would definitely spec it with the small safety on the left side, no safety on the right side because I'm a 3-gun shooter and I dump guns on the right to keep from getting DQ'd. I also found the aluminum a lot harder to reload than a plastic grip, which isn't really surprising. This is standard for basically all guns. If you've seen anybody who switched from a Glock to a CZ, they always have trouble reloading. I did, but most people also argue that it's pretty worth it to switch from a Glock to a CZ, even though they're harder to reload because everything else is so much better. I'm guessing that's going to be the case, but we're going to find out. So the gun is zeroed-ish, zeroed enough anyways. So I'm just going to go through kind of my process of learning a new gun. So if I'm actually trying to learn the thing, not just going pop, 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 oh, that's nice, and hand it back to the person that owns it. So what I would do is I would start with something pretty reasonable. And quick side note here, that went in nice and easy. This is all of my practice ammo. So this is the stuff that did not pass the case gauge. And the fact that this gun eats it up is a really good sign right away. None of my practice ammo will run through my CZ, and it is a huge pain in the ass. I don't want a gun that's so tight that everything has to be perfect to run because I shoot matches in places like Parma with the gun destroying its dirt on earth. So tight is good to a point. But, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to aim it at the target, fire the gun, see what happens with recoil, watching where my dot goes. Now I'm not staring at the dot, I'm staring at the target, but I'm aware of the dot. And then I'm going to change my stance, my grip, whatever I think needs changing in order for that to return back to where it left. I a little bit care how far it goes. Mostly I care that it comes back exactly where it left from. So here is the first shot actually trying. And I will tell you what, I'm not a fan of the big safety. Okay, well, Jesus Christ. I'm just going to walk this down right now because this gun is that accurate. Those are the 4 shots that I just fired. I own no other gun that's that accurate. So I am already quite impressed. That's a pretty darn good sign, I would say. Now, continuing with what I learned. The way I'm holding the gun, it lifts and it returns too far down. I'm driving the gun back down. This is, I don't know, I would say maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. What this basically means is I'm putting too much input into the gun and I'm making it dip after I'm shooting, probably a result of shooting this a bunch. I'm basically shooting this gun like I'm shooting that gun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shoot a little bit less aggressive stance, and I might ease up a little bit on the wrist tension, the forearm tension that's holding that gun in place. That did it. So a little bit less aggressive stance. I don't have to get into the gun quite as much, and I don't have to fight to bring it back. You can just kind of hold the gun and let it do its thing. I'm actually going to go real overkill here and see how this feels. I wish you guys were here so I could hold your hand and show you how hard I'm hanging onto the gun. It's not a lot. I'm going to shoot a couple rounds through this gun doing the same thing. Yeah, that feels substantially different. Now, is it better or worse? I mean, it's better. It requires less effort, right? So if I'm doing everything that I should be doing and I'm super tuned up to the gun, I would say I can probably shoot them both at about the same level. What this is going to do is let me get away with a lot more. And I think where that's really going to play off is if you're, in a really bad shooting position, you're on a lean or something like that, where you don't have your full stance behind the gun. I think it's going to let me get away with significantly more aggressive shooting in those circumstances. Now, the trigger is way better, like drastically better, which shouldn't surprise anybody. What do I not like about this? Like I said, I don't like that aluminum grips are harder to reload. They just are. That's the way that the world works. That's just physics. If you stick a steel mag into an aluminum grip, you can put them in at a wrong enough angle where it binds, where if you put a steel mag into a plastic grip, as long as you get that thing started down the hole, it's going to go in. I'm bummed about that, but I saw it coming. I'm really not surprised. I'm just, I'm bummed that I was right. So I wish that wasn't the case. I wish physics weren't going to physic, but they are. I don't like the big paddle grip. I don't like that this has a front sight on it. So if you can see on my gun, I took the front sight off, so I just have the notch there, so it looks all goofy, just like the rest of that gun looks all goofy. But everybody wants backup, co-witness, all this other stuff. I shoot open division competition. If my dot goes, I'm kind of toast anyways because the margins are so close. I'd rather not have another bright red thing in my field of view trying to distract my eyes. I notice the front sight a lot. Now, if I shot this gun a lot with the front sight on it, I'm guessing I would stop noticing at some point. If this was my gun, I would just go get the sight pusher and take that thing off of there. Also, this holster has this is my holster that I had to modify to make it work for this gun, but I had a little screw that stuck through there to make everything nice and tight, and I had to take that screw off because it caught the front sight on the way out. So normally what I would do here, I would shoot several mags worth of doubles drills, something along those lines, shooting one at a time, watching the dot return, then going to full doubles drills, going plop, 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 and making sure that everything's coming back. I'm going to do a couple of those right now because nobody wants this video to be an hour and a half long. And they gave me lockback mags. I haven't fired a magazine that locks open a slide in like 8 years. It's freaking me out. Yeah, so I'm occasionally overdriving it and I'm shooting a shot low, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So if I shoot this gun the way I shot my other gun, then I start doing this. I start driving rounds out of the A zone down into the C zone. So as I'm starting to shoot faster because I'm still getting used to the thing, I'm going back to my old ways. And at some point you just have to get really tuned up to the gun that you're shooting, right? So what I'm doing works for the gun that I had, doesn't work for this gun, but that's fine. So I'd normally put, however many mags through the gun until I wasn't doing that anymore and I felt pretty good about stuff. Now I'm gonna shoot some kind of wide transition. So I'm gonna shoot this target and then I got another target about 4 lanes over there. And I just wanna see how the gun tracks because it's a significantly heavier gun than what I'm used to. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to get going. It's gonna be a little bit harder to slow down. And I'm just gonna see how that feels. And another note here, you notice I'm not doing any of this from the draw yet. I want to get used to a gun before I start adding a bunch of stuff in. So I don't want to, wasting ammo is not really the right word, but ammo is expensive. I want to make sure I'm getting the most value for all of my rounds. So if I get a bad draw and then do some complicated drill that I'm coming up with, I'm basically just throwing those rounds away because I got a bad draw. So I'm not learning anything from it. So I want to start with the grip that I'm actually going to shoot my drill. Once I have a good handle on the gun, then I'm going to start drawing. Then I'm going to start reloading and shooting after that and all those other things that go along with it. But I'm generally not going to start there. I'm just going to start with the gun in my hands. So I'm just going to shoot two and two. Let's see how this goes. Yep. That's interesting. So interesting result here. So we shot our 2 there. We got a couple A's. And then over here, I swung past the A zone and shot a Charlie. And then I swung back past the A zone and shot another Charlie. So the gun being significantly heavier definitely does have an impact on how it speeds up and slows down. Mostly slows down. I can get it going pretty good. There's extra mass. I got to kind of like start that process a little earlier. That was better. That was way better. We're into our second stash of mags here. All right. Now we're into my beat up mags with my practice ammo. So if anything happens at this point, I would say it's not the gun's fault. We'll see. Maybe everything will go great. That's going to take some work. More work than I'm going to film for this entire video. But that's not the gun's fault. That's learning stuff. I'm just going to do the same thing a couple times with this guy. Yep, like I said, practice ammo. God, this feels different. Remember in the last video, if you watched the last video, hopefully you did, when I said when I switched from a Glock to a 2011, just for a little practice session with the buddy of mine, then I switched back to the Glock felt shitty. The same thing happens. Like just shooting a couple mags through that, I pick up my gun and it just feels like shit. I'm really not excited to send the Atlas back. And the trigger feels way heavier. You can see the little trigger freeze that I just had. I'm already getting used to just tickling that thing and having the gun go off, and now I have to like really push through it. Definitely different. It's very different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. It's like shooting if you have like a light base stage rifle and then you switch to like your 16-inch, natural terrain rifle. It just takes a little bit more speeding up and slowing down. You can do the same things, it's just slightly different to get it done. And I haven't shot it enough to keep track of the dot as well as I'd want. It reacts in a different way. Like I said, I'm overdriving the gun. I'm shooting a lot of low Charlies, and I'm definitely over swinging the A zone and shooting a lot of Charlies on the right side. And that's all just getting used to it. So I would say overall, it's way nicer. It's for sure way nicer. It's way more accurate. It has a very nice trigger. I really like the grip. I really like the way that it feels in my hands. It definitely has a very different recoil impulse going with a almost full inch shorter barrel. It feels significantly different, and it's not better or worse, but it's very different for sure. It would take some real getting used to before I'm like fully up to speed on this thing, which will be coming down the line for sure. I'm pretty excited to mess around with the grip panels and see what those things do, but I don't think I'm going to have time here before I have to send this back because I'm flying to Texas for a shotgun qualifier in about 2 days. So that's not happening. But, it's a way more expensive gun, and it should be. It's a way nicer gun. You can see where all that money went. Is it worth it? I don't know. Are nice cars worth it? Not really. You can make an argument. Zach over there is shaking his head. Yes, you can make an argument that there's no reason to own anything but a Honda Civic. I would make an argument that you spend a lot of time in your car and it should be fun to drive. That's why I have fun little sporty cars or a big old truck. Guns are the same way. I spend a lot of time shooting the gun. I just want it to be nice. I want it to be a good experience when I'm doing it. Is the difference between that gun and this gun going to be 5 places in a match? For sure not. Could it be a place? Definitely. I have lost out on a second place and a third place by less than a second. I've been in third place at a national level major match and been like 0.28 seconds away from second place. Could that be the difference? Yeah, 100%. You could have slightly faster splits throughout the entire thing and make up that time. Is that worth all that extra money? If you pour this much time and effort into the sport, absolutely it is. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to shoot this thing a bunch more today, but nobody wants this video to just be like 4 hours of me shooting guns. So we're going to leave it there, and we'll wrap it up later and tell you guys what I found out. So see you guys out there. All right, wrap up time. We just shot, I don't know, it was like a 400 round practice session, something like that here at the Armory, and learned a lot. I learned some things that I already knew, and I learned some new things. Thing number one, whichever gun you shot a whole lot is gonna feel more comfortable. I have well over 100,000 rounds to this clapped out piece of shit. You know, if I ever sell this gun, somebody's gonna look at all these videos and be like, I'm not paying anything for that. And this guy, I have, I don't know, half of that 400 rounds, maybe a little more, maybe 300 rounds through this, and 100 rounds through that one, something along those lines. I just had a bag of ammo. I'm not really sure exactly how many it was, but in that neighborhood. This is what I learned. By the timer, this gun was better. There was a recordable, measurable difference in performance between this gun and this gun. The drill that we had set up here mostly, I'll just kind of show you where the targets are really quick. So we had 2 targets on the left, 1 target on the right there, a little bit farther out. I think the close ones are kind of like 7-ish yards, the long ones 10, 12, something like that. And we're basically shooting like Blake drills, like draw, shoot 6. We were doing some kind of reloads and stuff in there for a little bit, but mostly I wanted to get a feel for the gun. So it's just like draw, shoot 6, draw, shoot 6, draw, shoot 6. With this gun here, starting out, I was really routinely around, let's see, where was that? I was about 220 for like not going crazy, you know, dropping a Charlie here and there. And with this gun here, I was pretty immediately in the 210, 209, 208 territory. And it felt visually out of control, but we'd look at the targets and all the points would be there. And I think it's because it reacts very differently from what I'm used to. This has a very slow, pushy feel to it. Think about scaled down shotgun recoil, where it doesn't feel like somebody's punching your shoulder, it feels like somebody's pushing on you. This has a very fast, snappy recoil. There's more felt recoil, there's less dot movement, less rise. So I came back to about, you can get to about 13, 14 yards here at the back, and we're just shooting A zones and watching where the dot lifted to. This one, it stayed on the target, would occasionally barely leave the top of the A zone. I'm shooting like IP6 where the A zone goes to the top of the target. So this would stay from the middle of the A zone to the top of the A zone. This guy would leave the target by, let's see, 3 of those holes. That's like 4 inches. I mean, so a pretty significant difference in the amount of dot lift that I had going from dot to dot. Again, it felt different. Like unless I was really looking for it, I couldn't feel it. It felt very, very different, and I wasn't used to it. I would say it was something that I would get used to pretty darn fast. If I were to go shoot a match with this gun right now, I'd probably like take 5% off my score because I'm not used to it, right? Another thing that I wasn't used to was transitioning the gun. Huge difference transitioning this gun versus this gun. Significant weight difference. I'm not sure, I haven't weighed them or anything like that, but you can really feel the difference. Think not Glock to CZ, but like 2011, like this one to a CZ. CZ is pretty heavy. This is about CZ weight. I shot a lot of far right Charlies and Deltas over transitioning, not being used to slowing that gun down a little bit early. As time went on, I then shot some left Charlies and Deltas, getting ahead of myself, slowing the gun down too soon. Eventually it settled in and it felt pretty reasonable. The other thing for those who know splits get chicks, I really have to make an effort to shoot 16 splits with this gun. It does happen in a match occasionally. Sometimes I'll shoot a 15. If I'm really ripping and I get really lucky, there might be a 14 on the clock somewhere in like an entire practice session. With this gun, I was putting in 14 splits on just about every run. It is way easier to shoot this gun very fast, mostly because the trigger has less travel, is way lighter, is way cleaner, has a shorter reset. The trigger in this thing is drastically better than the trigger in this thing. And the one thing I noticed is I kept having trigger freeze in this gun. I was switching back and forth the entire time. And when I would go back to this gun, I kept having trigger freeze because I wasn't pushing on the trigger hard enough to make the gun go off. So, is it better? Yes, there is a measurable difference on the clock. The timer says it is better. Does it feel better? No. Probably because I've shot 200 rounds out of this and 100,000 rounds out of this. This one just feels like home. Of course it's going to. Would this feel better? Probably pretty quickly. I would imagine that with, I don't know, a month of time or something like that behind the gun, this would feel like home and that one would feel like complete crap. That'd be my guess. The interesting thing though, I didn't notice the big paddle safety. Remember I was talking about I broke my thumb and it doesn't wrap around and I don't like the big safety. I didn't notice any of that at all while I was shooting. When I'm just sitting here handling the gun, I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that sits on my thumb. When I was shooting the gun, totally didn't notice at all. I did notice that I kept bumping on the weak side safety over here, just doing regular gun manipulation stuff. So I don't like that. Like I said, if I were to outfit this myself, small safety on the left, no safety on the right, is the way that I'd go. But that's what I learned. We shot a bunch of rounds. We learned a bunch of stuff. I'm quite disappointed that I'm gonna have to mail this gun back. I'm really looking forward to the next one that comes. I'm actually really curious to shoot the Titan because it's a 5-inch gun instead of a 4.6-inch gun. And I feel like it's gonna feel a little bit more like what I'm used to, but have all of those benefits of the heavier gun, the aluminum grip, the really nice trigger, but not be so much of a departure from platform to platform. So yeah, that's what I learned. We'll see you guys out there.